welcome to our another session of ICIE Talks. Tonight we have an amazing guest with us, Dr. Sharma. And the topic for our session is four-quadrant model on identification and mentoring gifted students in an inclusive classroom. Dr. Jyoti Sharma has a master's in mathematics and Ph.D. in mathematics education from University of Delhi. She's an associate professor at Cluster Innovation Center, University of Delhi. She is a practitioner and a researcher in the field of gifted education. She has developed several indigenous tools to identify gifted students in Indian classrooms. She is among the early educators in giftedness who advocated the idea of identification as a continuation process and mentoring as an integral part of identification. She is strong with promoting the need of reconceptualizing inclusive education by focusing on gifted students. Her areas of interest are mathematics curriculum, gifted education, and innovation and creativity in mathematics pedagogy. Thank you so much for being here with us. Also with us tonight is Professor Taysir Yamin. He is a General Director of International Center for Innovation in Education, and he will introduce today's workshop.
Okay, thank you, Nana, for the introduction. So I would like to welcome everybody join this session today. And as you know from advertising this topic, we are interested today to know about gifted education in India in general. And also, this is the first time we have the opportunity to learn more about what is going on in India. Because normally we talk about gifted education in the US, in the United States, in Europe, and sometimes in the Middle East, but we never had the opportunity to learn about what is going on in India. And as Nana said, this is unique opportunity to have Jyoti Sharma to talk about this topic, taking into consideration that she is relating her experience and the outcomes of research to identification, programming, and the future trends. So I will not take that much from her time. So you are more than welcome to join us at the ICIE talks, and the platform is yours.
Thank you, Professor Taysir. Thank you, Nana, for giving this opportunity. And it is so nice and very exciting for all of us because many of my colleagues are also here to share our experiences on gifted education with the community of people who are practicing it for many years. Now I'll share the screen. Am I audible to everyone? So Nana, could you please confirm?
You can share your screen. You can start, the way you want.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yeah, it is clear.
Okay, thank you. So basically, I talk about the process, the work, the formally done in gifted education in India. And this work basically will talk about an experience of almost a decade. The entire process started in 2010, and now we winded up everything in 2019. And by the time this project, which was a flagship program by one of the major the government funding agency, now this program, with the help of this program and many other other gifted education awareness programs and practicing programs, we are able to culminate the inputs through the national education policy on gifted education, where gifted education is one of the important components. So I'll share my work. This work basically, uh, okay, uh, the basically four quadrant model of identification and mentoring gifted students in Indian classroom. But this process can be applied to any context, any culture. So it is not specific to the India, but yes, any classroom where you have a lot of diversity, and the students, a classroom which is inclusive, and you have students with diverse ability. Okay, so so this work is based on a national level project initiated and funded by the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. And we were a team of four teachers at University of Delhi. So my other colleagues, Professor Pankaj Tyagi, Professor Shobha Bagai, and Professor Bibu Biswal. Uh, and in addition to that, there were many research scholars who were associated with the project during this a tenure of almost 8 to 9 years. So I take this opportunity to thank everyone uh, for their inputs, for their hard work, because only because of that we are able to present a very holistic work on this very critical area of human resource development. There are some facts to consider. In fact, India is the second populous country in the world. We are the nation with the most youth population. The median age of the country presently is 28 years and 4 months. We have approximately 400 million school going children in the classrooms. The India has a very strong demographic divide and spread. So there are 23 officially recognized languages, but more than 840 dialects. So we have diversity in terms of culture, social, economical, and diversity within educational opportunities. So that we have very the high end premium schools, and we have schools with one teacher managing 5 grades, so that level of diversity. So it is very important that how we can develop a process of identification of gifted students, where we are able to uh, honor all the diversity. Okay, so that was one of the biggest challenge. There were many programs in India which were talking about talent development, but who is a gifted child was one of the biggest question marks. So celebrating the diversity in terms of the population, the education is one of the top most priority of the nation. The Ministry of Education is really working hard to make education uh, one of the high concentrated priority area in the national development. India has introduced right to education on 1st April 2010 to make education free and compulsory and universal for all children in the age group of 16 to 14. And now we are ready to increase the embed to senior secondary schools also, students also. India has also achieved almost 100% enrollment in school for children in the age group of 6 to 14 years. Uh, the country has recently launched the new national education policy. The last policy came into 1986, and now we had this new education policy 2020. And in this education policy, the biggest achievement you could see is there is a separate special para mentioning support for gifted students, and students with special talent. So the term, so basically the term gifted students in national education policy is the biggest focus of attention for people like us who were relentlessly working in the area of gifted education, you know. So uh, but background to this, if we talk about, so this 2020 policy came into force on 27th August 2020, but background of that goes much before that. There were many schemes which were promoting talent development at national level, funded by the government of India, but uh, schemes or programs on gifted students was still a question mark, you know. So in 2010, the principal or the office of principal scientific advisor to the government of India initiated a national level project, and this idea was uh, conceptualized by the former PSA Dr. Chidambaram and Professor Ramoti, who was secretary to the Department of Science and Technology, in collaboration with other top tier scientists in the country. So how to identify children who have high potential in science related domains, and can we develop indigenous methods to identify such children, you know. So the project started with an idea to identify gifted students in science and maths, but the methodologies and processes developed during this process are applicable to other subject domains also. So this project and this presentation, this session will talk about uh, academically gifted students, though we actually uh, honor and acknowledge and believe into gifted children in non-academic domains like sports and arts and other fields, you know. But this session is primarily focusing on the children in math and science, and definitely in other subject domains also. So this project became the stepping stone for systematic study of gifted education in the country. Initially, the project started 3 locations. The one was the Delhi, northern India. So Delhi was the center. So that was the one project location, and the population was the urban population. But yes, Delhi being a metropolitan city and the capital city of the country, so there is a wide cross section of population. So we have elitist small clusters also, and we have urban slums also. So the spread of the population was very wide, you know. So that the other 2 locations were in the southern part of the country. The one was the Bangalore. Again, the population was uh, the professional the children from the professionally high professional families and the urban population. And then there was this the Kopam, that was a location. The project location focused mostly on the children from the rural and disadvantaged section. So we started with these 3 locations. There were 3 independent teams working in these 3 locations, and the target was to develop your own methods and tools and processes, and then see can we bring some synergy so that we can develop a comprehensive uh, identification model with the national appeal. So we started from the base zero. The larger objectives were to develop comprehensive identification process along with identification tools to identify gifted children in science and maths across different age groups, to develop detailed mentoring and nurturance mechanism, and to develop the resources to mentor such children. So this project is primarily focused on the Delhi team chapter. So how we started from the Delhi as a center, as the pilot center, and then we scaled up the methods and processes to the national level. Okay, so we had very specific objectives. The first of all, we were supposed to define, operationalize the term gifted, because who is a gifted child? You know, what should be the nomenclature? Evolve the criteria to identify gifted children, develop instruments to identify such children. We need to we did a lot of brainstorming, discussions and consultations to define the age range from where to start with, to define the steps of identification and what are the possible routes for mentoring. So these were the targets. So we started with a very comprehensive definition. So giftedness is untapped, inherent, heightened potential in one or more than one specific domain, which can be demonstrated as manifestation of learning behaviors only under favorable conditions. The one is, it is still untapped, it is natural, inherent, and heightened potential. It is yet a potential, it is yet to be converted into ability and achievement. Okay, and it can be in one specific domain and it can be in more than one specific domain. And another important criteria is, it has to be demonstrated as the manifestation of learning behaviors only under conditions, only under certain contexts. So what were these three favorable conditions? The first of all, acceptance. Because when we started this work, yes, there were many groups who believed that giftedness is a very elite concept, you know. So all children are gifted. So how could you say somebody, so the idea of giftedness was associated with the elitism for some group of people, you know. So the first thing is acceptance. Let us accept, yes, there are individuals among us who are gifted. Once you accept, then you acknowledge them, yes, they have potentials, and we need to allow them to think differently, to flourish. And it is important that we cannot leave them on their own. They should be nurtured properly. So these three conditions were important if we really want to identify untapped, inherent, heightened potentials which are available in a gifted child. So with this definition and framework, we started the work. So the fundamental premises, catch them as early as possible, as young as possible. So and another belief is that giftedness is developmental. Fine, these are inherent potentials, but unless you mentor them, unless you nurture them, unless you provide them optimum opportunities, stimulating learning environment, emotional scaffolding, it will not be possible to remain gifted. They may become underachievers, they may lose their spark. So it is developmental, it is not a fixed constant, it is dynamic, it is flexible, it is fluid. So with this, we developed this 4-quadrant model of giftedness. The first and foremost is the generic cognitive constructs. I'll explain it later in the next slides. The creative index, the creativity is, we found that creativity is a very important factor in giftedness. The subject proximity. So if there is a child who is gifted in maths, that this child has a very natural closeness with maths. The child can associate with maths more closely than any other child of the same age group. And there are attitudinal attributes, which is the determination, the motivation, the attitude. So the constructs were advanced cognitive developments. The learner is able to achieve those cognitive milestones early. The creative dispositions, the metacognitive connect, heightened curiosity, and strong determination. So, for the subject specific, the academic giftedness signifies a natural flair for the subject, intense closeness with the subject, intuitive connectivity with the subject, intellectually creative, and academic rigor. So, if all these, so there can be a differentiation within these constructs, but uh, so some construct can be of high intensity and some can be low, but yes, altogether they allow a child to think differently, to think more intensely, and to think out of box, more advanced. So uh, we defined the levels of giftedness, so it is not a linear model. So it is basically the exponentially growing model, because we believe that it is developmental. So giving the right opportunity, the right nurturance environment to foster, uh, a potentially gifted child can definitely uh, reach to the next heights and next levels. So potential, so initially when we are identifying at the base level, we say the child is potentially gifted. We don't know the capability. Yes, there are some sparks, but let us explore further. Then the significantly gifted are those because when they demonstrate such learning behaviors, when they are stimulated through specific designed learning opportunities. And highly gifted children are, they demonstrate remarkable learning shift from the existing learning domain to more advanced learning domains. And exceptionally gifted children are far beyond the identified cohort of the group. So within the potential, within the cohort of talent pool, what we identify at the base level, and when we are mentoring them, we can see the difference in the developmental pattern of their learning behaviors. I'll show you how it works. The another premises we worked with, the identification is a process. So once we identify, okay, this bunch of students are potentially gifted, so again we continue identifying their learning traits, learning behaviors, and then we are able to see who are significant, are they moving to highly gifted, and are they able to achieve the level of exceptional giftedness. So identification has to be multi-pronged, and immediate context of the child should be at the center of identification. We validated our results with the uh, standardized test of intelligence and creativity. But uh, we believed that, and we worked also, we created our own identification processes related to the child's immediate environment. So this was the three-tier model which we used. The first was the referral phase, which is the baseline screening. The referral phase is basically teachers give reference, teacher nominate children, and I'll share how this referral phase works. And then there's this selection phase where we conduct an ability test, you could say. Basically, it is the subject specific, concept specific identification assessment tool. And then the scaffolding stages, kids come to we do the scaffolding, we do the primary mentoring with the child, and then we see how child progress in that. And from here we move to the higher level of giftedness and exceptional gifted, the stage of exceptional giftedness. So we worked that identification and mentoring shall go hand in hand. Mentoring becomes the next advanced stage of identification. As the level of mentoring becomes more and more focused and intensive, so is the identification. So we develop learning profiles when we are mentoring the child. So mentoring provides direction for identification, provides direction for mentoring, and mentoring validates the identification results. For example, we identified a child in our potential gifted cohort, and when we start the mentoring program, the child is not able to survive that mentoring program. So but that percentage of the such children was less than 5%. So we saw the results when we analyzed. So the children who were identified as potentially gifted, and when they were mentored, they progressed very swiftly and very effectively. So there were less than 5% students whom I should say they could not survive the mentoring, or they didn't enjoy the mentoring. So the mentoring validates the identification results. And when we are mentoring, we are developing their learning profiles, we are observing them, we are doing continuous interactions with the mentors, taking feedback, and it helps us to identify them for the next stage of mentoring. So this is how mentoring and identification go hand in hand. Uh, so the first cycle of identification, when we were developing the methods of identification, the processes of identification, we worked on a sample of 20,132 children, and these kids were from grade 6 to grade 9. Okay, and we developed this identification process, and we call it developmental identification and mentoring program. uh, so it is a comprehensive multi-layered identification process, which is age specific and grade specific. And it is not just the based on one criteria. There are multiple criterias on which we identify the child. And this is the pyramid of identification. The first is the talent pool of potentially gifted children. So this is the cohort. And then we move to significantly gifted children. And then we move to highly gifted children. And definitely after this stage, we reach to the exceptionally gifted children. So this is the scheme, the same scheme which I was talking about. The referral stage, we talk about potentially gifted. The screening stage, we talk about significantly gifted, and scaffolding stage, we talk about highly gifted students. And from this stage, we talk about exceptionally gifted students. Here, this is referral stage. Teachers give nomination. This is basically a nomination stage. Here we assess them through the testing process. Here we assess them through the mentoring, the small group mentoring programs. And here we talk about personalized one-to-one mentoring with the mentors. Okay, so the first stage, so this particular stage, if we talk about, so this stage has the teacher nomination, teacher's own assessment, the peer nomination, the self nomination, math attitude scale, science attitude scale, and parent nomination. So we get the data from all these instruments, and then we have an identification matrix. We put the entire data there, and then we identify the child. So and there are cross check balance also. So for example, if there is a gifted child who is not performing good in the class, and teacher may not nominate, because for a teacher, only a child who is scoring high is a gifted child. But there are peers who can nominate. If teacher doesn't like a child and doesn't nominate, then so we have the scope of peer nomination, and then we have scope of self nomination also, and then we have scores from parent nomination also. Okay, so so everything is put together, and an identification index is generated, which help us to get this group. So once we get this group, we do the SMAT assessment. This is science and maths ability testing. So so this is again a very interesting comprehensive assessment test where we give them 10 situations in math and 10 situations in science, and they can do all 10, they can do any one, but they have to. So we look here their scientific aptitude, we look their scientific thinking, we look into their problem solving abilities, and there are multiple criteria on science and maths. uh, and yes, the creativity is one of the important component when the assessment rubric, so there is an assessment rubric through which we identify the children. Now once this SMAT is conducted, after the SMAT results, we have induction mentoring program at scaffolding stage, so this is basically the small group mentoring program by the university teachers. And this entire the project, this entire exercise, the research was carried out at Cluster Innovation Center of University of Delhi. So the small group mentoring programs are conducted, and after these programs, through these programs, we are continuously observing their behavior, developing their learning profiles, and validating their work with standardized the test, intelligence test and creativity test. And after that, a continuous analysis of many mentoring sessions, we could identify few exceptionally gifted children who were recommended for personalized mentoring uh, by the top tier of scientists and mathematicians in the country. Okay, uh, so basically at referral stage we had a percentage of 10 to 15%. Selection stage we had 3 to 5%. Scaffolding stage we had only 0.1 to 1%. And the exceptionally gifted stage, which we say evolving, so now there is no limit. So now it is between the mentor and mentee how much they can reach to, and this is 0.1% or even less than that. This is the teacher's rating scale. So it has 15 items, just a snapshot of this. This is the peer nomination scale. This is the self-expression, self-nomination. This is the parents nomination. This is math aptitude scale, and this is the science aptitude. So these were the instruments which were used, tools which were used. At the second cycle, we validated the process. So initially, it was within Delhi with limited 20,000 something. The at second cycle, we validated the process. uh, so we eliminated many steps to make the entire process more robust, and the entire timeline, how to approach to the school, taking permission, training teachers, doing workshops and everything. So the entire process was made more robust, and the more flexible, well planned. So the second identification cycle, we had 11,668 children. And so these are the steps in identification which I was talking about. uh, so and we validated the results using WISC 4 and SPM. So 99.2% identified group of students scored in the high gifted category of WISC 4, or their score IQ score was 95% and above, in the category of 95% in SPM, which is the highest category. We developed learning profiles, and their learning profiles were analyzed qualitatively, and we studied the impact of mentoring program also by the piece of work they submitted. In the third cycle of identification, we scaled up the entire process in different parts of the country. So we spread in 6 locations all across the country, from the northeast to the southern and western part. And it was carried out in different parts across the country with more than 96,000 students, and tools and steps were well defined, and procedures of identifications was standardized by developing we developed norms for different cohort of students. So we did different kind of mentoring. So as I told you, we did it at Cluster Innovation Center, University of Delhi. uh, Selected students used to come to CIC. We developed need-based mentoring modules for them, and students were continuously observed. So these were the nature and spread of mentoring programs. So we did small group mentoring. So there were one-to-one mentoring also. We developed focused learning material. We could not do this, but yes, we suggested this for the children who were exceptionally gifted. So we had weekend programs, we had block mentoring programs, we organized summers and winter camps for them. We did project centric mentoring. So students took projects, and they worked on project for 3 weeks or a month. We wanted to develop the idea of clubs. Yes, it was there in the pipeline, but it could not be materialized. We wanted to collaborate with science centers in the country also. That was just in the pipeline, but modalities, we could not finalize the modalities. And we wanted to develop mentoring clusters within the schools. So for example, schools in the neighborhood, so one mentoring cluster, and the gifted children in those 20 neighboring schools can club together at one cluster. So that was again the plan, which can be materialized in the later stage now. So initially we started our work with children 10 plus 10 years plus to 15, 16 years. But later on, we as I told you initially, that we wanted to start as early as possible, so we experimented with 3 to 6 years. So further we expanded our umbrella to 3 to 6 years children. For that, okay, sorry, this is also the madhyams. The madhyam is basically it is a Hindi word which says interaction. So we started these monthly magazines for gifted students, because they were spread all across the country. So we wanted to have a continuous communication channel with them. So we identified interesting themes, and this monthly magazine used to be distributed to them. Yeah, okay. So first I'll talk about the early childhood. So now this early childhood, so basically for this we developed an activity kit. So an activity toolkit for cognitively advanced learner. We didn't call them gifted, but yes, cognitively advanced learner, because our identification process was based on the idea that these children are able to achieve cognitive milestones, some of the cognitive milestones at an early age. Okay, so we developed hands-on activities, and initially we pilot tested on a sample of around 57 students, but later on it was tried out on a group of more than 2,000. In fact, it was 2,400 something students, and there were 5 parameters: the time, accuracy, self-correction, and scaffolding motivation. So this is basically the cognitive ability kit, and these are the criteria. So level A, level kit A, B, C, D, E. So there are 5 levels, in the increasing level of difficulty. So 1-to-1 correspondence, ordering, seriation. So the important cognitive milestones, and how students are responding to this. Okay, now I'll move to the wait a minute. Yeah, so then we did talk about so we covered 3 to 6 years, 10 to 16 years. Then we started working in the area, but in this age bracket, 7 to 9 years. So this is early primary years. And for that, what we did is we developed science and math specific hands-on activity kit. So this is the science kit. It is basically a collection of 10 science activities, and it has certain questions. This kit is not validated at large scale, but yes, on a very small sample, less than 50, I think, less than 50 children in the age group of 7 to 9 years. It is yet to be validated on a large scale, but yes, we are going to take care of that. This is the math activity, and the focus is on mathematical thinking, so for 3 to 6 years, these are the cognitive focus was on cognitive milestones, and here the focus is on science and mathematical thinking, and how the children process uh, uh, on mathematics context and science context. So we try to cover the range from 3 years to 16 years. Okay, so and this is the spread of the work, because initially we started with to develop the identification tools, but as we started working, we realized that there are many things which will go hand in hand. So there was identification processes, there were the mentoring program, so and who will be the mentor. So we have the mentor readiness scale also. So there can be somebody who is an excellent researcher or a scientist or a teacher, but cannot be good mentor. So we have mentor readiness scale. We developed mentor readiness scale also. Teachers training, the tools development and validation, research. So whatever we did, the documentation and analysis, we realized the need to have good counselors, because counselors need to be updated with their sensitivity towards these children, and the parents awareness. We face a lot of challenge when we realize that the many parents who say my child is gifted and my child is gifted. So helping parents to understand if their child is gifted, it is a challenge. They need to really they need to start working hard with the child. They need to run an extra mile with the child, and how to deal with such children. And if the child is an average child, so don't force a child to be a gifted child. So the parents awareness campaign and programs and seminars, and resource generation, creating resources which can be used by the teachers and the schools. So we work simultaneously here. So we developed teachers training programs of multiple levels. So there are basic orientation programs which goes from up to 3 days, where it is the idea is to conceptualizing understanding of a gifted child of the teachers and sensitizing them, why there is a need, who are these children, and why is it important to take care of them, or in an inclusive classroom. And then there are workshops which goes for almost a week, 6 days, workshop on identification of gifted students. So teachers learn the process, how to identify. Teachers learn how to create small pockets in the classroom where gifted children can demonstrate their behavior. Okay, unless they create those contexts in the classroom or in the school, how these gifted children will get opportunities to behave in a certain way, to show their sparks. So helping teachers to create such windows in the classroom, in their learning, in their teaching process. So, and how to use these identification tools. So workshop on identification for 6 days, differentiated instructions for inclusive classroom. That is again because how to handle these children, how to make your classroom more inclusive when you have a gifted child. Because we initially, when we started the initial phase at the first cycle, we did a survey with the teachers, with 694 teachers, and just to understand their understanding about gifted students. So many teachers agree that yes, such children are there in their classroom, but they actually told us that they are not capable of handling them. They don't know. Yes, these children are there in our classroom, but don't know what to do with them. So how do you engage? So the question was, how do you engage them? So most of them said, fine, we ask them to help the slow students in the classroom, help the weak students in the classroom, or sometimes they ask these children to do whatever you want to do, or you want to go to library, okay, or you help the teacher in the everyday working of the classroom. So but they were not able to do anything constructive with these children, so we planned a differentiated instruction for inclusive classroom. So how they can make their everyday teaching more enriched for them, and advanced courses on curriculum design for gifted students, which so these are some teachers training modules available, which we developed during this entire course of research. Then we felt the need to have programs for school counselors also. The one is the basic orientation program, from the counselor's perspective, their roles and responsibility. And because gifted students come with a lot of behavioral problems, so how to counsel them. And important segment is counseling the parents, because we realized in India that many parents, the minute the as soon as the parents realize that there is a program for gifted students, and many parents would approach us saying, fine, please see, my child is gifted. So helping them to understand who is a gifted child, and if their child is gifted, what should be their contribution, what should be their role, and how to handle them. So how to be a support for these children. So counseling the parents is also important. So there are programs for counselors in these three dimensions. So if here, so this is the website where you could see the work. There are many resources present here, resources for students, if you see. So we have all these issues of madhyams here. So we have resources for teachers also. So all kind of research works and all kind of useful links. Then we provide various services. So to the school. So if any school wants to start an integrated identification mentoring program, then we can do that. If schools want an embedded program in their existing curriculum, we can do that. If to have accelerated mentoring programs or early childhood identification scheme, so we provide these kind of services. So a lot of information related to this work is here. The achievement is many of the students whom we identified when they were in grade 8. There's this girl who was in grade 8, and a very shy girl by the teacher's rating, but this girl was topper in their grade 12 at national level. The entire country, she topped the grade 12 exam, which is basically exam, not a school home exam. It is the exam conducted by the national body, which is Central Board of Secondary Education in the country. So we have many success stories of these students. Success stories in the sense, these were the children whom we identified at an early age, but now these children they have performed well, and this is what validate the process. And it was not just. And another thing is, we had a wide cross section of student population. So and these processes, these tools were applicable with all kind of population. So the kids in the children from the rural section, children from the disadvantaged section, and children from the elitist section who have the widest learning resources, so uh, how to how to identify these common characteristics which we say the gifted is. Okay, so there was a lot of focus on helping teachers to understand bright child may not be a gifted child, the confusion between a bright child and a gifted child, helping to decode many myths related to giftedness and gifted education. So these were many challenges, when we were working on this project. So and so the biggest achievement is not just about this project, but yes, there are many organizations who are working independently in this area, and so we feel a satisfaction when we see that this small population is there in the national policy of the country. So we are hoping that we'll be able to get a national policy for gifted students in near future, and very well defined programs for these children. So we are hoping for that. And now I'm looking for your suggestions and feedbacks and questions. Okay.
Thank you so much. And of course, I will give the platform to my friend and colleague Nana. But before we proceed with questions, first of all, I would like to thank you for this comprehensive point of view about the Indian expertise and the Indian model when it comes to identifying and nurturing the gifted students. As we see from the lecture, you were talking about standardized multiple criteria screening and identification process. And what is unique about your experience is that you managed to develop your own tools. Because normally in other cultures, we know that we have to import, we have to adapt and modify tools which are developed in other countries. But what is unique about the Indian expertise or experiment that you managed to develop your own tools, and this is a plus when it comes to gifted education. The second thing that you gave us a hope for many countries, because normally we ask about what are the main components required to be there in order to have gifted programs. And you managed to shed light on most of the most important components, especially when you talk about legislation. And we are really happy to have the idea and to know from you that you managed to have this legislation and you have this paragraph which says that in the national policy, you already have the Article 4.43, and this is very important. Even they don't have it like explicit to talk about the gifted students, but implicitly we can say they recognize that we have such a population or special population, and this is also a huge achievement when it comes to legislation. Last and not least, you were talking about different types of programs and the strategies, but I found that you are using different terms. For example, you managed to talk about mentoring, and we know that as mentorship programs as one of the major programs we can introduce in addition to the academic programs. But it seems you have a different strategy to handle these issues. I appreciate your contribution, and in the International Center for Innovation in Education, we are talking to you from Germany, we are talking to you from Croatia, from Rijeka, where we established also a unique program for the gifted students. We appreciate what you are doing in India, and we encourage other nations to follow your model and to learn from your model that we could achieve. We could have gifted programs, and we could be very productive in this field of knowledge. I will not take that much. I will leave the platform for Nana to coordinate the questions from the audience.
Thank you, Professor Tasi.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I will just relay several questions that we have in the chat. So the first one comes from Miss Vina, and she's asking, can giftedness be measured, identified only at young age or at the school level only?
See, but giftedness can be identified at any age, but giftedness be developmental, and many our developmental traits are achieved by the time we reach to our the early youth. So if these traits are not nurtured at an early age, by the time we reach our youth they are faded, unless there is a context, unless there is a stimulation, it will be very difficult to identify.
Great, thank you. Then we have another question. It says, do you follow gifted children to advanced stages, for example, at universities?
Repeat again, Naina.
Do you follow gifted children to advanced stages, for example, at universities? I think they're asking if you follow them from young age to university to see how they're doing.
We try to do that, because see, as of now we are working in a project mode, so we did try to do that. So there was the kids who were identified in grade 6, we mentored them till grade 12. Okay, but when they reached to university, we left them, so but yes, during the schooling years we did that. And there are other schemes of talent development at university level, so probably these students can take advantage of those schemes. But the kind of mentoring we conceptualize, it is a long sustained mentoring, and we really want to continue this mentoring even at the university level, but as of now, no.
Okay, thank you. Then we have another question. It starts off with a thank you. So she says, thank you for providing us with a thorough overview of a hopefully impactful project. I was wondering if you use the same criteria and scales across ages and grade levels. For example, did you use the same aptitude tests with the younger students? Thank you very much.
The framework was same. The first the nomination and then the screening and the scaffolding, but the identification tools were different. For example, 3 to 6 years, it was basically the play based activities which were designed keeping in mind the cognitive milestones. For 7 to 9 years, it is basically the science and maths related activity, the basic science and maths related activities. And for grades 10 to 16 years, this is basically grade specific activities. So the important learning outcomes a child must have achieved during that particular grade. So it was focused on that. Is it clear, or shall I explain it further?
Nana, you have to unmute. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, I apologize. Yeah, I think if there's additional questions, they can post in the chat. But to me, it seemed pretty clear. So there's another question which says, according to new education policy, students will be able to choose subjects of their interest. Can these identification tools be helpful in deciding, choosing the subjects by young students?
Of course, definitely yes. And these identification tools can be the guiding criteria for it, And I can vouch for this because we have very concrete results on that.
Okay, if there is no question, I would like to ask you about capacity building, because capacity building is one of the most important components, and you already addressed that. And can you tell us about how long it takes, for example, for each group of people to get training and cover all topics and issues relating to capacity building and gifted education in general?
So Professor Tasir, it is in context of teachers.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, as I told you, we have three levels of teachers training programs. The one is because first level is the sensitizing the teachers and helping them to conceptualize giftedness, because there are many myths and misconceptions related to giftedness, because this is what we experienced. So undoing all that, so it is basically a 3 days interactive session and workshop with them, so where we talk about theoretical constructs, we talk about the classroom examples, and then help teachers to deconstruct their myths related to a bright child and a gifted child, intelligent child, high achiever child. So this is the basic part, which is actually it is important for all the teachers to get through. Then we talk about very specific teachers training program, where we help teachers to use the tools to identify gifted children, so using the identification process. And then there are certificate level course and diploma level course, where teachers can develop a broader understanding of giftedness, the theories of giftedness, existing models of giftedness, and different strategies to use in an inclusive classroom. So, certificate is a 6 month long program, and diploma is a 1 year long program. In diploma, we talk about a teacher who can be a professionally qualified gifted education expert. Okay, and then they can develop curriculums for gifted children. But in 6 months program, we equip teachers uh, to develop differentiated activities in an inclusive classroom. But at the diploma level, they can develop specific, for example, accelerated program for mathematics students, okay, or enrichment or compacting program for a scientifically or a gifted child in science. So this is the spread of the teachers capacity building programs.
And do you think in India you have more mathematically gifted people than any other country?
uh, 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 yes, Indians, because we did find that, but yes, because Indians are probably genetically we are good at maths, or maybe we focus too much on mental mathematics exercise. But when we are identifying, we are not focusing on the skills, it was more into the process of mathematization and deep mathematical thinking skills.
And do you think that you are able to offer programs which are designed and implemented to help parents? I mean, the parents of the gifted. Do you have any programs designed for parenting the gifted? In other words, parenting the gifted?
Yeah, definitely it can be developed, because whatever we are talking about, it can be tried out in any context, any culture. It is not Indian classroom specific.
What makes this is another question. What makes gifted education in India low profile?
Okay, so there are three valid reasons. The one is, we were still focusing on that every child should reach to the classroom. So the idea was making education accessible to all students. So the first focus was on that. After that, the quality of education. So we got the right to education bill passed in 2010, and we made the government, the state made efforts that all children are enrolled in the classrooms. The second focus came on the quality of education, you know. So let us now improve the quality of education, capacity building of teachers, putting up good infrastructure in the classrooms in the schools. And later on, you know, so the third focus, now we are talking about gifted students. So basically, as the standards of education are raising gradually, the focus is shifting to gifted children also.
Do you think that policymakers in India are now convinced enough and they are willing to allocate the right budget for gifted education?
uh, yes, Professor Dasi, once the gifted education support for gifted students come into the mandate of national education policy, special allocation is given. You know, the budget was announced on 1st February of this month, you know. And there is special allocation for to implement the mandate of national education policy. So when you have a special budget, definitely gifted education, gifted students will get their own fair share in it. And yes, the government of India started last year, started a national program called Dhruv, uh, to identify such children and to mentor such children. So the last year, 60 children, 30 from the academic domain and 30 from the arts domain, you know, were identified. And then they attended a 2 week mentoring program. So that was just the first trial. It was, but definitely from now onwards, this year onwards, and in the progressive years, definitely we'll have a full scale national level program. So there are agencies like NCERT, PSA office, CBSE, ministry itself, IITs, they are working to develop a very comprehensive program for gifted children, because now we are believing that every gifted child is important for us.
Nana, if you have questions in the chatting room or...
Yes, there's 4 more, so we will see how many we will get through. The first one is giftedness genetically proven and DNA related?
See, we believe that because we have very strong evidence that there are potentials which are genetically there. And why I'm saying it with full confidence, because we worked with children from the remotest part of the country where they had rarely any resource or exposure. So, and when these children come demonstrate these kind of traits, so we believe that it is genetically designed, you know. And but it flourish when child is provided right kind of learning opportunities.
Great, thank you. Then there's a question about what happens if we don't support the kids. Would giftedness disappear with kids if not discovered or not developed?
There can be, it can go anyway, it can disappear, not disappear, basically it go under the carpet. Okay. The child can become underachiever, and child can become destructive also, delinquent also. So it can go in any way.
Thank you. A couple of more. So next one is there any model that teachers can use to identify them better? However, with shy students, so I think their question is specifically with, how to better identify maybe shy kids.
Nana, yes, we have a complete identification chartered for the teacher. As I told you, it can be, teachers can be trained for that. And I cannot explain that in few minutes. It requires almost an hour session just to explain how this model works.
Great, thank you. Then there's a question about parents. Did you usually train parents to help in sharpening their kids' gifts?
Uh, in fact, we had counseling sessions and seminars for parents, but parents do need training because a child spend a lot of time at home, and parents kids need good support and right kind of support from the parents also, because in India parents play a very dominant role in child's life, so, but as of now, we did not plan any specific training programs for parents. But yes, we did some counseling sessions for them. But I personally, I believe we must have good training or counseling orientation program for parents.
Yes, thank you so much. There's a question about obstacles. What are the major obstacles that your teachers face through the identification?
The one is our system is very examination driven. So the teachers focus more on completing the syllabus and focusing how children can achieve good marks. And since the results are important, teachers focuses most of the time on children who are not performing good. Okay, so sometimes, and the classrooms are large, so no, so there are 50 children, 60 children in one classroom, and the pressure of the syllabus completion, getting good scores, because the teacher's ability sometimes is, most of the time, is judged by the kind of result she or he produces, so a teacher hardly give any attention to a child who is performing good and who can manage the studies on her own. So this is one thing. The constant pressure of getting good scores. The second is the large number of students in the classroom, and the third is the lack of adequate skills in the teachers. Teachers do not have uh, those skills, as Professor Tasir also said, the capacity, they lack capacity in handling these children, so they do not have good pedagogical skills to engage these children or to stimulate these children.
Great. So there's another question, and it goes like this. I was wondering if the focus is on all students at first instance, then on quality education. How does your model compare to Professor Renzulli's school-wide enrichment model? Thank you.
Okay. So Professor Renzulli is my mentor. I was as a student, I have studied his model. So definitely, his work had lot of influence on my understanding of gifted children. But yes, this model is different in many sense. The one is, we are talking about a layered model. Okay, the second is, we are focusing more on creating situations in the classrooms. The second, when we are talking about, so at second level we are talking about a testing model, so it is basically a layered model, and the third is, we are talking about the mentoring and escalating their potentials, so we move from the potential to abilities to achievement.
Great. So this was the last question in the chat. In between those questions, there was many comments thanking you for a wonderful lecture, for showing us a great model, for being interactive and approachable in this session. So there's many of those kind of comments in there. So I didn't want to skip that, and just to let you know, everyone's feeling very grateful and appreciative for your time and knowledge.
Thank you, Naina. Thank you, Professor Tasi, for the opportunity. And it was wonderful sharing our experiences at the International Forum with other colleagues. I could see my colleague and friend, Professor Pankaj here, Dr. Ketaki, the Rahul, and the young scholars who worked on the project, Anurag and Shilpi. In fact, it is the celebration and hard work of everyone. We are able to put things together, and we are able to bring a model, bring a design, where we say find these brilliant mind exist, and they should have a very prominent and visible face in an inclusive classroom. So thank you everyone, and we would love to connect with this audience again and again. Yes, my friend Dr. Minakshi, whose school was one of our partner schools carrying out all the pilot work. So it is the time of acceptance and recognition for all of us. So we would like to
Thank
connect
you.
with this brilliant audience and again whenever we'll get an opportunity.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. I would like to conclude the first part of this event today by saying thank you to our friends and colleagues from India. And we believe strongly in diversity. We believe strongly in civilized interaction. And the ICIE is your platform, and we are happy to have you today and in the future. And also many thanks go to our team here, Nana from Croatia, Ahmed from Sharjah, and other people who was involved in organizing this event. And again, I would like just to remind you that on February 9, we will have another talk. It will be about gifted Black people. Today we learned many things about gifted Indians, and this is very new knowledge for us, as you know, because you have to search for many resources in order to learn about the Indian expertise in this area. But today, our friends from India, they made our job easier, and they give us many, things to think about. On February 9, we will have Fred Bonner from University of Texas or Texas A&M University. He will talk about gifted Black students. And on 10th of February, we will have another talk, and it will be combined. I will introduce a new material developed by Renzulli and Sally Rees, and then you will have the opportunity to talk to them. So they will join the session. So this is what is coming for this week. We are sorry it is too much, but this is an opportunity. So thank you so much. So now I would like to say thanks for all the people who will leave the session, speaking English speaking people, they can leave the session. Then people who are interested to have a summary in Arabic and to have, discussions about this, they can stay in the room. And this video will be available in our YouTube channel. It will be available starting from tomorrow. So thank you again.
Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you next week.
Okay, see you.